I knew it was coming, even if I didn't want to admit it. Daisy, my old golden retriever, had been sick for months now. I tried everything I could. Vet visits, special food, medication. But her energy was fading, and it broke my heart every single day. The vet had said it was just a matter of time. Her body was giving out. That afternoon, I took her for a walk, knowing it might be one of our last ones. I'd gotten used to carrying her more than walking with her. But today, she seemed a little more alert, a little stronger than usual. As we walked through the neighborhood, she sniffed at the grass, her tail wagging slowly, like she was trying to enjoy the simple things one last time. It was a quiet walk, the kind you take when you don't want to talk, but need the comfort of familiarity. Then Daisy did something unexpected. She pulled on the leash, gently at first, but then more forcefully, as if she was urging me to follow her. I was surprised. Daisy hadn't had the energy to lead us in ages. I hesitated, but I trusted her, so I let her guide us. The direction she chose led us away from our usual route, down the path toward the woods behind our neighborhood. I didn't think much of it at first. Daisy had always loved the woods, and maybe she was just trying to find some comfort in her old favorite place. But then, something in me changed. I felt a little nervous, but I followed her anyway. Daisy seemed determined, her steps growing steadier with each step she took. As we walked deeper into the woods, the air felt different. It was quiet, almost too quiet, like the whole world had stopped to watch us. The usual sounds of birds and rustling leaves were replaced with a heavy silence. I couldn't explain it, but something inside me felt uneasy, like I was being pulled into something I wasn't prepared for. Daisy, however, seemed calm. She kept moving, her steps sure and steady, as she led me deeper into the trees. I couldn't help but feel a little lost myself, the path growing more and more unfamiliar with each turn. I'd walked these woods before, but today they felt like a different place entirely. I was about to call her back, to turn around and head home, when I noticed something strange, a faint glow coming from behind a cluster of bushes. At first, I thought it was just the sunlight breaking through the trees, but as I moved closer, I realized it wasn't sunlight at all. Daisy stopped in front of the bushes and looked back at me, her eyes locking with mine for a moment. It was almost as if she was telling me to go on. With a deep breath, I pushed the branches aside. And that's when I saw it. Behind the bushes was a small clearing, just big enough for me to step into. And right there in the center was an old wooden box. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a shoebox, but it looked ancient, worn, with the edges frayed and the wood darkened with age. There were strange markings carved into the sides, symbols I couldn't recognize. It looked out of place in the woods, as if it had been waiting there for years. Daisy sniffed at it, her tail wagging gently like she had found something she was proud of. I bent down, my hands trembling a little, as I reached out to touch the box. It was cool to the touch, smooth in places but rough in others. It felt important somehow, like it was waiting for me to open it. My heart raced. I didn't know what I expected to find, but something told me that whatever it was, it would change everything. I glanced at Daisy one last time. She was calm, her eyes soft as she looked up at me, like she understood something I didn't. With a deep breath, I opened the box. Inside, there was a letter. I carefully pulled the letter out of the box. It was folded in half, and the paper was yellowed with age, brittle at the edges. I held it gently, as if it might fall apart at any moment. The writing on it was in ink, but it looked like it had been written a long time ago. Spidery, elegant handwriting that made my fingers twitch with curiosity. I unfolded the paper slowly, my eyes scanning the words. The letter was short, but the message hit me hard. To the one who finds this, it began, I have hidden something important in these woods. If you are reading this, you are meant to find it. This is your destiny. Trust your heart and follow the path beyond the trees. It will lead you where you need to go. The letter was unsigned, and there was no mention of who had written it. It felt unreal. I read the words again, trying to make sense of them, but nothing about it made any sense at all. I looked down at Daisy, who was still standing by my side, calm as ever. She seemed to be waiting for me to do something, but I wasn't sure what. There was a lump in my throat, a mix of fear and excitement swirling inside me. Could this be real? Could this be what Daisy had been trying to lead me to all along? I tucked the letter carefully into my pocket and stood up, looking around the clearing. Something told me that the next part of the journey was about to begin. With the letter in my pocket, I stood there for a moment, trying to gather myself. Daisy was already moving again, heading toward a small opening between two large trees. Her pace was steady, almost determined. I couldn't help but follow her, though I still didn't understand what was happening. The woods felt different now. The air was cooler, and the silence that had once made me uneasy now felt peaceful, like the trees were holding their breath, waiting for something. The path Daisy led me on was narrow, overgrown with vines and underbrush. It was clear no one had walked this way in years, but Daisy seemed to know exactly where she was going. The deeper we went, the more I started to feel a sense of purpose. I couldn't explain it, but I knew in my gut that this wasn't just some random walk. This was something bigger. Daisy was leading me somewhere, and I was meant to be there. Finally, we came to a small creek, the water rushing over smooth rocks. The sound of it was calming, like a whisper, but there was something strange about the area. The trees around the creek were older than any I'd seen before, their trunks thick and twisted, like they had been standing guard for centuries. And then, I saw it. On the other side of the creek, partially hidden by the trees, was a small wooden cabin. It looked old, like it had been abandoned long ago, but there was something about it that drew me in. My heart raced again, and Daisy's steps slowed as we approached. I had no idea who had built this cabin, or why it was hidden here in the woods, but the letter, the path, Daisy's determination, all of it pointed to this place. I knew I had to go inside. The closer we got to the cabin, the more I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't explain it, but there was a pull, something urging me forward. Daisy had stopped at the edge of the creek, her eyes fixed on the cabin, as if she, too, knew that this was where we were meant to be. I carefully crossed the creek, my boots slipping slightly on the rocks. Once I reached the other side, I took a deep breath and approached the cabin. The wood was weathered, covered in patches of moss, and the door was slightly ajar, as if inviting me inside. I hesitated for only a second before I pushed it open. The air inside the cabin was musty, but there was something comforting about it, like it had been waiting for me all these years. I stepped in and Daisy followed right behind me, her tail wagging gently as she sniffed around. The cabin was small, with wooden beams crisscrossing overhead and a stone fireplace against one wall. There was dust everywhere, as though no one had lived here for a very long time. I took a step further into the room, my eyes scanning the space. On one side there was an old wooden table, and on the other, a small bookshelf filled with worn books. But it was what sat in the center of the room that caught my attention. A chest, similar to the one I had found in the woods, sat on the floor. It was slightly open, just like the door, and I could feel that this was the next step. This chest, just like the box, had been waiting for me. I walked over to it slowly, my hands shaking as I reached for the lid. When I opened it, I couldn't believe what I saw. The chest creaked as I lifted the lid, and inside was a collection of items, things that looked so out of place, yet strangely familiar. There was a worn leather journal, a few small trinkets, and an old photograph, yellowed with age. But the thing that caught my eye most was a small delicate necklace resting on top of everything else. I picked it up gently, my fingers brushing over the smooth silver chain. The pendant was a small, intricate design of intertwined vines, and in the center there was a tiny stone, blue, like the sky at dusk. It felt heavier than it looked, and I could feel a strange energy radiating from it, as though it had a purpose beyond just being a piece of jewelry. I set the necklace aside for a moment, and my hands found the journal. It was old, but it felt sturdy in my hands. The leather cover was cracked, but it was still intact. I opened it carefully, scanning the pages. The handwriting was similar to the letter in the box, neat, but with an urgency to it. The first entry caught my attention immediately. If you are reading this, it means you found the path. You are the one who will carry on the legacy. The woods have always been a place of change, of transformation, and you, my dear, are a part of it now. I froze, my heart skipped a beat as I read those words. It felt like the world had stopped for a moment. I wasn't just here by chance. This wasn't some random walk in the woods. This was meant to be. I flipped through more pages, each one telling a story of someone who had come before me, someone who had hidden these things here, waiting for the right person to find them. The last few entries were written in a hurried, almost frantic scrawl. They spoke of danger, of a force trying to stop this legacy from being passed on. And then, at the very end of the journal, there was a final note. The necklace is the key. You must wear it to unlock what's hidden. Trust your heart, it will guide you. I looked at the necklace again, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. It felt right, like I had no choice but to put it on. I knew that, just like Daisy had led me to the woods, the necklace would lead me to whatever came next. With a mix of hesitation and determination, I fastened the necklace around my neck. The moment the pendant touched my skin, I felt a rush of warmth, like an energy flowing through me, almost as if the necklace had been waiting for me to wear it all along. Daisy, who had been quietly watching me, suddenly stood up straighter, her ears alert. She looked toward the far corner of the cabin, where a small wooden door was hidden behind a curtain of ivy. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it seemed to be calling to me. Without thinking, I stood up and walked toward it. The door was old, the wood covered in thick vines that almost looked like they were alive. I reached for the handle, and as my fingers touched it, the door creaked open with ease, like it had been waiting to be opened for years. The room beyond the door was dark, but as soon as I stepped inside, I felt a shift, like I had crossed some invisible boundary. The air smelled different, earthy, rich, full of life. In the center of the room was a large stone pedestal, and on it rested a small glowing orb. The light from the orb was soft, but it was like nothing I had ever seen before. It was as if it held the answers to everything: my questions, Daisy's sudden guidance, the strange letter, and this unexpected journey. I walked toward the pedestal, Daisy following closely behind me, her tail swishing as if she, too, recognized the significance of the moment. I reached out and touched the orb, and the world around me seemed to fade away. The moment my fingers made contact with the orb, I felt a surge of energy rush through me, unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was as though I was being pulled into another world, and everything around me blurred into nothingness. My body felt weightless, and my mind spun with images and sounds, memories that weren't mine, faces I didn't recognize, and whispers that echoed through my thoughts. Then, just as quickly as it had started, everything stopped. I found myself standing in a new place, or maybe it wasn't new, it just felt different. The air was thick with mist, and the ground beneath me was soft, like I was standing on the edge of a dream. And there, standing before me, was a figure. A woman, dressed in flowing robes with eyes that seemed to see right through me. She smiled, a calm and knowing smile, like she'd been waiting for me all along. "You've come," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I knew you would." I wanted to ask her who she was, what was happening, but the words wouldn't come. The necklace around my neck felt warm again, and the woman's gaze shifted to it, as if she knew its power too. "You're not just here by chance," she continued. "You've been chosen. The path you've walked, the things you've discovered, they were meant for you. This is your legacy now." "Legacy?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What do you mean? What do I have to do?" The woman's smile deepened, and she stepped closer. "You have already begun. What's hidden in this world, its secrets, its truths, will now be yours to protect. The orb, the necklace, the woods, they were all guiding you to this moment. And now, you must carry on." The weight of her words hit me like a wave, and my heart raced with both fear and wonder. I didn't fully understand what she was telling me, but I could feel it in my bones. This was bigger than me. This was my purpose. The woman placed her hand on my shoulder, her touch gentle, but her grip firm. "Trust your heart," she said. "It will show you the way. Daisy has been your guide, but now you are the one who will lead." I looked down at Daisy, who stood quietly by my side, her tail wagging softly. It was like she knew everything that was happening too. She had always been more than just a dog to me. And just like that, the mist began to clear, and I found myself back in the cabin. The orb was gone, the pedestal empty, but the necklace remained around my neck, glowing faintly, like it held the promise of something more. I blinked, disoriented for a moment as I stood in the cabin once more. The room was quiet now, the air still. But the sense of purpose, the weight of everything I had just experienced, lingered. My heart was racing, my mind swirling with the revelation I'd just encountered. I looked down at Daisy, who was sitting calmly at my feet, her eyes locked with mine. There was no fear, no uncertainty in her gaze, just trust. She had brought me here for a reason. And now, it was clear that our journey wasn't over. The woman's words echoed in my mind. Trust your heart, it will show you the way. But what did that mean? What was I supposed to do now? I stood there for a while, feeling the quiet pulse of energy from the necklace around my neck. The room felt different, almost as though it was alive with a secret waiting to be uncovered. The cabin wasn't just a cabin. The woods weren't just woods. They were the beginning of something much larger. I walked toward the door, Daisy by my side. The sunlight outside seemed brighter, warmer, as though the world was welcoming me back. The trees rustled gently, as if they were alive with whispers, guiding me toward something new. There was no clear answer to what came next, but somehow, I knew. The woman in the mist had been right. The journey was mine now. The secrets of the woods, the legacy of the necklace, they were all part of a larger story. My story. And as I stepped out into the sunlight, I didn't feel lost anymore. I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Daisy barked once, a soft, joyful sound, and I smiled. We were ready for whatever came next. Hey there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I loved sharing it with you. If it resonated with you, make sure to like, comment, and share with your friends. Let's spread the message, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new story. Your support means everything, and it helps me keep creating content just for you. I'd love to hear what you think, so drop a comment below. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.